Hello, welcome along. We are live on Twitch. My name is Arielle. Thank you for joining us for the next hour. We are going to be talking as one, and the topic today is the future of broadcasting. We're going to have an amazing panel of industry insiders, and if you are tuning in, we'd love you to get involved. If you have any questions, we will be doing a Q&A. And anything you've been planning to ask about the future of radio, about the current position of radio, or if you've ever wanted to work in radio, then feel free to put your questions in the chat. We'll try and get through as many of them as possible. I'm kind of not going to beat around the bush and get our lovely panel onto screen so you can meet them all. First up, with over 10 years of experience in the broadcasting industry, she crafted her skills as a BBC producer on a wide range of genres, from BBC Three, working on classical music shows, to the dance shows on Radio 1. Since then, she's gone on to develop a company, a production collective called Sonicus, and they produce podcasts for the likes of Animatronic, Glenn Fussell from Sync the Pink, Keith Lemon, and loads more. And currently, she's helping Defected in their live radio offerings for Twitch. Please welcome Lucy Winter to our wonderful conversation. I like
nice to be today.
Nice mood lighting there. I feel like you've got a spotlight on you.
I'm actually in Defected HQ today, ready for our afternoon of broadcast that follow this. So
you're downstairs.
Yeah, that's good.
You weren't allowed to be in the same room.
Yes, exactly.
I'm looking forward to having our chat today, actually. Next up, you might know him as one of the co-founders of Boiler Room. He's now also known as the creative director of Worldwide FM, working alongside collaborator Giles Peterson. You might also know him under his Global Roots moniker, which he presents some of the Worldwide's most important programming. Please welcome Thristian. Hello. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Am I bright-eyed? It's the first time I've seen my face today. Hello.
Thank you for joining us today. Last but not least, wonderful Rebecca Frank. Rebecca, you might know her from Bauer Media, head honcho at KISS, formerly of BBC, One Extra, Asian Network. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today, Rebecca. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Good to see everyone.
I've been told by Little Birdie that you were having a chat before this chat already, and they were just like, you can just leave Rebecca to it. She'll just talk about the whole subject and like wrap up in an hour. So I might let you have my job for the next hour. I am going to get to it. Radio, one of the oldest mediums going. It's been around for well over 100 years. And although it's obviously evolved and the content's changed in the way we listen and how we get to listen, how we get that signal has obviously developed and changed over the years. What do you think, as people, not just industry insiders and experts, what do you think as people, people still need radio and broadcasting? Why do you think it's still so relevant? Is it still relevant?
Yeah, I like it. I like listening to the radio. Even other radio stations. I suppose, I don't know, it's, for me, I don't know, like radio initially was like an information kind of like post, wasn't it? It's kind of like where you get information from about like local news or your town, kind of like a replacement for Town Crier in a way. I suppose it's now kind of turned into like, with internet radio, you know, over the years, it's probably kind of disseminated into kind of like a bit of a local community hub that then just transcends to whoever wants to lock into it, to be honest, I think.
Yeah, I think starting with that sort of enjoyment element, like we listen to it to entertain ourselves and to learn things. I think for me, I've come from a music radio background, so for me, music and radio and broadcasting are so intrinsically linked. My relationship with music is so relevant and important with radio in the way that I consume it and enjoy it and find new things, have the company of good music and good broadcasts and great DJs.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you guys have said, and I think company and connection and just the emotional connection of radio is to me like nothing else. Radio in all its forms, in all its platforms. I think it sets the mood and it helps the mood, and it's company. So you know, music plus people, and being able to be live and being able to react to what's going on right now and really speak to people one-on-one as well as one-to-many. I think that's always going to be something that there's a need for amongst other kind of new mediums.
Do you think, having experienced the last year and a bit of being in a global pandemic, that it really highlighted just kind of what broadcasting and radio can provide for, say, communities, or like you touched on the information part, or it's music, people keeping people's mental health maybe like a lot healthier? Do you think it was really highlighted because of what we've gone through in the last year, about how much radio can help people?
Yeah, I completely agree with that, especially with communities and even specialist music. I think a most amazing example of that is the birth of No Signal Radio, who absolutely smashed it on their socials to kind of create a real community around the sort of battling music against each other, getting the conversation around music. And it was a station that birthed out of the pandemic, and they've just done so well, and they've totally epitomised what radio is, to kind of uplift people through dark times and tricky times in people's lives.
It's funny that, because I remember hearing about it, not knowing how to access it, but really wanting to be a part of it, because it was like putting artists against each other, like had like an amazing kind of legacy of music. And I remember sitting on Twitter, like trying to find like a link or like someone like retweeting it just so I could like log into the next. But it really came out of nowhere, didn't it? That whole signal. And then they've gone on to make it into like a bit of a like TV show and whatnot, haven't they? They started filming ones. I'm making that up.
It's just been picked up, but they have playlists on Spotify. I mean, they just seem to have accelerated so quickly by touching on something that everyone was going through together, and just really championing Black music and just having a real identity and just pushing it in all the right places and reaching all the right people. It was just incredible to see.
It was kind of, I think a mix of like crowdfunding as well, and some investment has meant they've been able to buy studios and start to see. I'll second that, Lucy. I think they're the absolute epitome of what radio can be, and all its superpowers. And that's like people power, isn't it? Like literally getting people that love it and want to support it to help fund it and help it keep going. Like it's brilliant. So yeah, I think the pandemic's just birthed loads of new things. And I think for people like, us at KISS, or even, worldwide, and loads of platforms that have been around for ages, it's just made us really kind of muse on what our superpowers are and what we're really about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's been a big learning curve for us.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, something like No Signal is really kind of inspiring and refreshing to see that it can happen still, because sometimes you think, I don't know if these things can happen still. And I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but during the pandemic, I didn't really know what was going on. You couldn't really see anyone. Didn't really have a connection. It was just Boris on the TV telling us like shake hands or whatever. So I felt like the radio, and other mediums. But I mean, I suppose the radio, you do get a sense of, there's a human sense that comes out of it that's different to Instagram or Twitter. And so it was just nice to know that other people were confused as well, and nobody knew what was going on. And I think that was the thing, isn't it? For me, the pandemic was really isolating, obviously, but nobody had any answers, and that was one of the most confusing things. And it was kind of nice in a way eventually to find out that nobody had any answers. It wasn't just me going like, yeah. And I felt radio, and all those kind of like community things. And I think No Signal, obviously that environment exists like on the street, in clubs, or, with people interacting, or maybe it's in college or whatever, however it is, like, maybe they're passing each other videos, or maybe it's in a club. But then that was taken away from us. So No Signal basically just kind of like made a virtual kind of replication of that. Which, it kind of makes sense when you see it happen, isn't it? It's like, that makes total sense.
Did you have to adapt your content at all? Did you kind of tailor like more like change up playlists, like the live shows, were they more reactive and interactive, or less interactive? Or, I know that a lot of our shows had to either be pre-recorded, people weren't allowed to go into the studios, things like that. So that then obviously changed certain content within the shows that we were doing. Did you guys have the same?
Yeah, there was no studio, which was the main thing. It was kind of figuring out how to get radio shows on the internet. It kind of like broke down that whole situation.
Oh wow!
So it was you know, it was a lot of, I mean, me, myself, I had to build my own studio, you know, which was amazing because I've never had all my music in the same room with some turntables, which has turned into an amazing thing, but it was only out of necessity. And, you know, that was happening with, you know, the 120 different DJs that we've got on the station. And it was just figuring out what's best. Is that broadcasting live via Twitch? Is that pre-recording an MP3? Is that sending links and then we can paste it together on Ableton? You know, it opened us up to like things we probably wouldn't have even thought about before.
I do think definitely that, and finding the opportunities, like the work I've been doing with Defected. It was during this pandemic that we've started doing more live actual radio shows via Twitch and more content than ever. That sort of really is finding its space and growing for the first time in its own way. And I don't know if that would have happened anyway without the pandemic, but I think the increase in the amount of sort of virtual things and remote DJ sets and shows from the studios here has increased. It's good to see, and we'll continue the momentum.
Yeah, I mean, at KISS, it's been completely foundation shaking, to be honest. I've only been in charge of KISS during the pandemic. Make of that what you will. I literally joined a week before lockdown, so my very first meeting of, 9 o'clock on Monday morning with this dream job, I sort of envisaged high-fiving loads of people down the corridor, but actually no, it was a broadcast contingency meeting. How do you move sort of 3 national radio stations to broadcast from home? So it's been foundation shaking, and I think we, just talking about KISS for a sec, are at a point of evolution anyway with the brand. And so we launched a new breakfast show, brought specialists back to KISS, discovered event radio, like all kinds of stuff that we've kind of felt the confidence to do during lockdown, not least just because of a bit of a switch up of energy, but just that kind of thing that I said at the beginning that we've all touched upon, of like really focusing on our superpowers in radio and kind of going like, we need to have more human connection. I wanted the personalities of the presenters to come out more. I wanted us to bring back specialist music to reconnect with people, because now's the time, talk about captive audiences at home. But yeah, like things like smart speaker, like for us, have gone up like 75% over lockdown. But then I think at the same time, we've all as traditional broadcasters lost, at work or in car listening and stuff like that. So it swings and roundabouts, but yeah, like absolutely foundation shaking the past year, I think, in a really positive way in many ways. But yeah, difficult for the team. I don't know about everyone else, but like certainly with a sort of fairly young team, there's been definite moments of kind of really having to come together and just be there for each other, because lots of people in house shares or missing that social aspects and all of that stuff. And we're all creative social animals in radio. It's what we do. Everything that we do comes through a human being's heart and soul. So but yeah, foundation shaking for us the past year at KISS, for sure.
You just touched on something that I was going to ask as my next question, pivotal moments of broadcasting changes and how we have like developed ways and techniques of listening. You've just touched on the smart speaker, which is a whole new concept now. And like, how did that just evolve? Because people are at home and they were saying, Alexa, put on KISS, or is that something that then you had to start promoting because you saw that was really kind of growing?
Yeah, I think good old Jeff Bezos has had a bit of a field day, hasn't he, with Amazon over the past year. So I think, like, to be honest, there's a very pragmatic reason why a lot of people have bought smart speakers over the past years, because they've been absolutely shoved in everyone's faces with Amazon sales obviously just going nuts. But absolutely, I think that kind of put on a radio station in the background at home kind of activity has definitely increased, because most people are at home more than they were before. It's that simple. And I think the convenience of smart speakers has just been brilliant. And we've got IP stations as well as our kind of FM and DAB stations as well that have really, really shot up, because I think also people have just wanted music to suit the mood, not necessarily lots of talking, as well as also wanting talking. So we've all, like, all the things that everybody on this panel works on all kind of are brilliant, because they're all, different mood matching sort of stations that you might want, and the smart speaker just allows you to get all of that like real easy.
How do you all individually listen to radio?
Yeah, that's a good
however I can, to be honest. I mean, I listen quite a lot via Sonos. I don't know if that's a plug for Sonos, but that's just a habit I've got into. Shout out to Sonos. But that's just a habit I've got into over the years. You know, I mean, it's kind of like, however, whichever way I can plug in, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, you know, whether it's Bluetooth, and I think that's probably the magic of radio. You know, I think you know, as we've evolved, we've moved from, you know, FM to DAB to being online, and then kind of utilize, you know, there was a point where it was like, oh my God, like online radio, it's going to kill FM radio. But now we've realized that they can coexist. You know, it's not one versus the other. And so I think for me, that's one of the magic things of radio is you can always, you know, especially, you know, being in Hackney and back in the day, you know, you could always turn the dial and find something in there.
Yeah. And it's interesting that term of like the death of radio. So I'll let you speak in a minute. But it's just like, it's just everyone, when there's been that moment and that shift when DAB came into play, when smart speakers, there's always been this, this the end of radio, or like you say, but it's great to hear that you know, like they can coexist. It's a medium that doesn't seem to be going away, in my opinion. You were going to say something, Lucy?
Yeah, no, it's not. The sort of this sort of fear about the dying of radio and how we consume it, and if we consume it in one way, will it prevent the other way? And especially with sort of music streaming services and the feeling around that, you know, will that stop people listening to radio? And I think the way that we've all touched upon and what we enjoy about radio is the spontaneity, you know, the personal aspect of it, and actually even from a practical point of view, some of the, especially when it comes to specialist music. Lots of the music that, say, NTS play or even on Defected Radio, or through specialists on KISS, isn't always available on Spotify. You know, you get special mixes, pre-releases, and I think radio will still, the sort of real-time radio will still have a place alongside even what seems like the biggest competitor, which is a streaming service. And I think being able to adapt a radio into a place where you can listen wherever you are, at whatever time. I think that's a big shift in our psyche of how we see radio as not just something that is happening there and then, but it's something you can take away with you. With the launch of BBC Sounds, obviously, and combines speech offerings and podcasts as part of their radio, you know, global player, and lots of people doing that. I think it's just there's more, but they're not always fighting against each other. It doesn't mean there's always a battle. That's what I think.
I think like there's no doubt that most radio stations probably like reach is steady, the amount of people that are listening, but the amount of time that people are spending with each radio station is probably decreasing because of streaming services, because of all of the choice. So like the coexistence point, I think is really key. Like we've got commercial deals and have done with Apple Music. We've just done a massive one with Amazon Music. Like YouTube, like it's about having clever frenemy relationships with kind of new other platforms, and there's a place for radio, like you say, there's a place for streaming. All of these things are just suiting different need states, different moods that you're in. And like I say, I think we probably everybody will notice peaks and troughs with reach, but actually like overall with radio, it's going up actually, but it's the amount of time that people are spending with each radio station is probably decreasing, and certainly for under 35 stations across the board, that's the case. But that's just part of evolution. That's why we've all got YouTube channels and social media and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think there's just room for everybody, man, and it's about us making sure that we're matching moods and what people need, not seeing it all as a battleground, like you say, Luz. I completely agree.
I find it
also.
No, when you go, Tristan.
Yeah, there is one. I mean, I kind of lost it because we haven't been able to travel that much recently. But you know, one thing that like local radio used to give me was a sense of like direction to wherever I was. You know, if I was in a new city, you know, if I was in Paris, I'd listen to Radio Nova, and that would kind of like, you know, you'd hear about the gigs that were happening that weekend, and you'd hear the DJ and the energy from that town. You know, NTS gives you a bit of a like Hackney kind of like vibe to it, or Dub Lab from LA, KCRW, all that kind of stuff. You know, as soon as I kind of like land in a new town, I want to find the like local radio so I can get down with those guys. I want to know what's happening.
I find it interesting what you touched on there, Rebecca, about actual streaming services coming together with radio stations, because I I saw in the BBC Sounds app, you can now click through and like to the Spotify link, and I was like, well, that's weird, because in my opinion, I was like, surely that's taking people away from like our shows. But then it's that whole thing of like, I have a friend at Spotify, and I was chatting to him about it, and he was like, we don't want to come in and be like, be gone radio, we need curation, we need to steer those people to then listen back to our set on our kind of streaming platforms. So I do find it quite interesting, because I remember when streaming first started, I was thinking, this is really going to be bad for radio. And it does seem to be that everyone's working alongside each other. We've had a question from Arielle 2803. They say, do you think the future of radio will become more immersive with studio views, interactive playlists, Zoom forums, signing for deaf people, virtual radio festivals, etc.? I mean, lots of options there. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us are kind of already touching on that. I mean, look at, Boiler Room and sort of visualized, gigs that a lot of us are doing, or social media content. I think, yeah, absolutely. It's just, for me, it's about the right content, the right platform, the right time, and not necessarily like what you are hearing on the radio is therefore that. Sometimes that really works with the visual content, but sometimes it's about cousin content, isn't it, to sort of draw people in and not seeing it all as kind of one particular, one bit of content on all platforms. It's about sort of picking the right things to put on the right platforms. But yeah, 100%. I think we're all sort of, feels like we've all been doing some of this for a long time. But I think it's a really great question, because I think there's still that sort of perception that a lot of radio stations are not as sort of future facing as, for example, streaming services or people that started off natively on digital platforms. But yeah, absolutely. The access point is an interesting one. I think accessibility is definitely something that a lot of people like us and a lot of people on this panel are kind of looking at in terms of our app development and stuff like that. And, yes, there are, subtitles on social content and things like that. But I think that's definitely really high up the agenda for us sort of moving forward with app development and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think accessibility, and with all the different kind of technologies that come up, and whatever that is, however we can integrate it into like presenting the content in a way that more people can access it, and enjoy it and get the message from it. I know I'm personally, and all the people that we work with, we're up for exploring it, and working with it and seeing how it works. I suppose, that there is a point where it's kind of like a bit of an oversaturation of like, right, we can add this, we can add this, we can add this, and then the core element essentially gets lost. So it's amazing to have all of these tools and all of this technology, but we are at a point where we're kind of like feeling around, figuring out, like you say, what does Boiler Room do best? What does Kiss FM do best? What does Worldwide do best? And I find that really exciting. Being able to figure out how we can help people with hard of hearing enjoy the radio more. It's an amazing discovery to work on.
Tools.
I think staying true to the sort of some of the radio roots when it comes to visualization. I'm sort of quite a radio person at heart. So when it comes to visualizing radio, I really think it should look like a slick TV operation. I think what Rebecca said about using the right sort of mode at the right time. If you're getting to the point where you want to video show, but you're turning it so much into a thing that you're losing the ability to have the thing that makes radio so special, like the spontaneity, the kind of slightly chaotic element, the sort of paper flying about. I think just got to stay true to whichever platform it is we're doing what we want to deliver.
I have a question for you, Thristian, because you obviously started at Boiler Room and then went to Worldwide. Was it important for you to bring that visual element straight to Worldwide? Because obviously that's where your roots were, and kind of that phenomenon that was Boiler Room on YouTube. Was that an instant thing that you wanted to bring to Worldwide, the visual aspect?
I mean, it's just part of exploring the evolution, I suppose, in a way. I mean, Boiler Room, like, we didn't really mean to like visualize it. It was supposed to be a mixtape at first. And then I was like, I'm using Ustream. Blaze was like, I've got a room that you can Ustream from. I was like sick. And then, you know, we invited mates down, you know, things like having the camera facing the DJ. That was only because that's where the only place the camera could go.
Yeah.
That wasn't like, oh, this will look cool. Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, look, this will look cool. Then I was like, oh, that's sick how you do that. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool, man. And you know, so for me, I mean, you know, I suppose those are mixed up between kind of like personal aims and like the development of radio broadcast. You know, we couldn't have done Boiler Room without broadband, you know, and broadband and Twitter and all of that stuff were coming into their own at the time. And then, you know, I suppose it got to a point where, you know, like 5 years, for me personally, I was 5 years into Boiler Room and I was like, wow, this is all getting visualized so much. Like everyone can see everything. It's a lot. I want to go back into a studio behind the mic. And, you know, but still bringing the visual elements, like, you know, through snippets of videos. And it was kind of like that thing of like, okay, we don't have to film everything. Like, you know, like, and I mean, you know, nowadays that, you know, there are concerns about digital waste and, you know, stuff like that. So all of a sudden you kind of learn, you know, it was a new discovery. It was like, wow, cameras, video, everything, we can do it. Let's go. And then, you know, it's, I suppose, the way in which I discovered different subcultures and different music, and I wanted to kind of sit back a little bit more and take my time rather than like jumping in for a weekend, having a wicked party, and then leaving, and then waking up on Monday being like, what happened?
Yeah.
Whereas now, you know, I can see it. I feel a little bit like an old man, but you know, it's digesting it, and that's my personal journey. And I'm just, you know, with Worldwide and Boiler Room, it's just kind of exploring it in that sense, and hoping people experiencing a similar story in that sense. So, you know, the evolution of broadcasting, the future of broadcasting for me is really exciting because it's new things to discover, new people to connect with, and there's a myriad of people around the world, and I've had the blessing of going from one side of the world to the other, which would just never have happened without broadcast and the internet and music. So, you know, for me, it brings people together in such an amazing way, and finding more ways to bring people together is the way, and what my mind can manage at the time.
We've had a question which I feel like it's always like the term that everyone uses when trying to be like trendy or ahead of the game. But someone's asked, how do you keep radio relevant with the Gen Z audience who may be waning off radio or haven't grown up with radio? I love this concept, Gen Z, as if they all suddenly just went, oh, we're not doing the radio. What would your kind of response be to that?
Open the door and have they come in.
I mean that, but also, you know, not resting on laurels to think that people are just going to grow into your brand.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, Arielle, like, I mean, yeah, I worked at Radio 1 at a time when it was all about the average age coming down, and it was like at all costs, no matter what the shape of the audience, we must get younger because that's public service broadcasting, right? You've got to appeal to a certain demographic. I think for us at KISS, it is about making sure that we're using brands like Kiss Fresh and our social content and our partnerships and our events to make sure that our brand is relevant to them. So we're hiring the right people. We're actually going to be making an announcement, sorry to do this guy's quick plug, in a couple of weeks about Kiss Fresh, which is one of our sort of extension brands, which was launched a long time ago, but never given a huge amount of love, which is all about new music and a no pop zone and, you know, lifestyle content that is unashamedly, I'm not going to say in a press release it's for Gen Z, but it's unashamedly about trying to bring people into our brand. They're not just sort of sit there and wait for them to sit in a cab and enjoy the music one day, because we are all vying for attention. We're all vying from PS5s to streaming services to worldwide. So they're like, we're all vying for attention. So I think we've all got to work hard and value younger audiences and not just sort of sit there and go, okay, we'll just wait for them to grow into it. So we're all working very, very hard on it, because without that next generation, but even for Magic, which is in the same parent company brand for me, I need to make sure that I'm getting people into radio for them, and you know, like it's the same with the BBC, isn't it? Like it's tough, but it's work, and people in our positions need to do that work and not just sit there and wait for people to go into it.
I think also it's about understanding this Gen Z audience and knowing that they're, you know, obviously they're on TikTok and there's lots of things that they're doing that, you know, we didn't do when they were their age because it wasn't around, but it's almost not sort of patronizing and thinking they don't want certain types of content, and it's giving them a platform and a voice. For example, One Extra Talks, or, you know, even these sort of discussions, that it isn't alienating a young audience, that, you know, they don't necessarily want to filter on everything. They respecting their voices and their need to listen to things that are going on. You know, they're socially conscious, this young generation. They've grown up with political turmoil. We've got to sort of honour that with them, and not just think that they're, you know, young and they just want fast, quick entertainment. I think it's giving them the spaces for them to grow.
I think it's true that, isn't it? So what I love about Gen Z is actually how brave they are. I feel like my generation wasn't as brave. And like, just being able to be brave enough to have conversations online or going out to protest for what you believe in, and commenting online about that and having that debate in those conversations. Whereas when I grew up, I don't feel like I was ever party to that. I don't feel like I felt brave enough to do that. And I think that's what I find really exciting about Gen Z in particular, is that, and whether we kind of allow that to kind of those conversations to happen on radio, I do think is quite important. If, like you say, you want to keep relevant with that audience. Katie has had a question, and I like this actually. Do you think we will see more people wanting to go into broadcasting, given the uptake of DJs on Twitch and radio style sets in lockdown? Inspiring.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so.
It's democratized it, hasn't it, a little bit? It's kind of like taking it away from, you know, that kind of centralized superstar DJ that sits on a pedestal, makes announcements, and everyone's kind of realized that, you know, they can do it themselves. And I think that's also positive because, you know, it gives a sense of relation to the DJ and kind of what they're doing. You know, it's you know, it's not just magic. You know, I hope so. I mean, I'd be surprised if not.
I feel like the skill sets that have been learned because we've all had to, like you're saying, you've got a studio at home. Like, I remember I did Hoxton Radio for 5 years, like weekly. So I just wanted to have a platform to curate music for 2 whole hours, like just my taste alone. But I didn't know how to run a desk. I didn't come up through video production, and I did it to learn that side of things. But then it was such a like weird way of like learning it. Whereas I feel like people have been able to do that at home now by going online and going on Twitch and be like, right, well, they've got like a little mixer and then they use that microphone. And yeah, I feel like people can just they can set up their own radio stations on Twitch, like, couldn't they?
Yeah, and they can find their voice, and also that they're literally their voice, but also just their musical voice, like who they want to be, like all of that stuff. Like it was pirate radio back in our day and the people on the pedestals, Tristan, like you say, and now you've got community radio that I also think has democratized that, because there's some amazing people sort of helping to develop young talent, from DJs to presenters to whatever. And yeah, things like Twitch, Mixcloud, like, yeah, people just being able to do it themselves. Like the demos that we get in, and I'm sure other people on the panel sort of get in now, are just people that have like, here's like 100 things that I've done, you know. And it's awesome because it shows they've got that passion, that they don't care if they're broadcasting to 3 people, they just have honed their voice and who they want to be. And I think all of us just want people that have got conviction in what they want to do. Like there's nothing more attractive than someone goes, I'm really passionate about this. And it's really hard to find that without that democratized sort of platform that now exists. So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I want to touch on social media and radio, because talking about that, having that platform and using, you know, like being able to go on Twitch and start your own radio show. Do you think it's important for someone who wants to get into radio potentially to be careful on this, or to use their social media as a CV almost for their passions of how they want to get into radio? Would you ever take that into consideration when you were employing someone who wants to be part of your station?
I don't hire just on social reach, definitely not, because yeah, just cause no. But like people that have been creative and are using their social platforms to kind of get themselves out there to experiment and all of that, like I say, just to me it kind of breeds like ingenuity and that they're interested in finding their voice and finding like who they are. But it's definitely not like, oh, let's get like the highest sort of Instagram followers and pick someone sort of thing, because that's just one platform and one level of engagement, and radio is can be a completely different thing.
More and in terms of like actually showcasing their work. So like, you know, like if you have a CV these days, lots of people do these like fancy CVs that are like reels or like we would do like a radio demo. I just wonder, like, if you are employing someone, would you go to social media and be like, well, actually they've got a whole like page of what I can see of them being active and producing and being creative? Would you ever take that into consideration? Would that help you be like, well, they're obviously like working their backside off it, I can see that. Is it worth someone who wants to get into radio potentially to think about those things, as in, well, you can, it's exposing their artwork in a kind of a different way, I suppose?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You know, it's different for whoever it is, you know, like I mean, it is useful to see that somebody's kind of like got production skills, but it depends if it works within the, you know, the aesthetic of what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I, you know, I mean, I've just done a whole bunch of like talking to different DJs about their shows and all that kind of stuff. And you know, I'm just as happy to take on somebody who's got a strong community, a strong narrative, engages well with people, who doesn't know how to use turntables. You know, we can kind of like help them bring it together. If they can record their mic well, or so, you know, so it kind of works. Like, you know, there may be a different aspect of their life that I'll look at and think, okay, those guys are really on it, and they've got a passion about it. It doesn't necessarily need to be a passion about radio. It's what their passion is.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't necessarily need to be, my passion is making radio shows, but maybe there's a passion about a community project, or, you know, like a social issue, and you want to use the radio in order to communicate that. So yeah, there's a bit of and I mean, it's nice to teach people how to create radio as well. You know, you don't always want the finished package. It's nice to help people with tools and stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to say on that, I've hired people based on brilliant reels that they've done that are just really funny. Do you know what I mean? And they just got across that they're really funny, and there's something there, and they've actually never done radio before. But you're like, you know, if you just brought that over here, that'd be great. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, as well, it's a sort of not a personality thing, but a feeling thing with someone. Like, someone could be really technically inexperienced with, you know, the desk and the microphone and that sort of stuff, but just have this little spark or something in them that is just a natural sort of voice that wants to come out and to be broadcast. And the best radio DJs and new DJs could come out of the strangest places. You know, they could be nurses or people that are people.
Well, there was our NHS DJ, wasn't there? And the guy who is a doctor was an NHS nurse. To like DJing, he's brilliant.
From his kitchen.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah, he was sick. I was like, oh, wicked. And he got on BBC News as well. I was like, oh man.
Monki, our wonderful DJ, she said, live streaming is the new pirate radio. Jaxie 2009 wants to know if you agree with that statement.
Yeah, in a way. I suppose you can look at it like that. People broadcasting from their bedrooms to whoever wants to listen, whoever's down with their sounds. It's kind of like, it's got that aesthetic a little bit, I think.
And the freedom of speech, essentially, and freedom of what you can do. You know, if you make your own Twitch radio show, you can do whatever you like. You can be as rogue as you like. You play white noise for an hour and a half and then into a microphone for the rest of the day. I think that's what I like, you know, coming from the BBC, which obviously is very regulated and sort of, you know, for all the reasons it should be, and then coming into spaces where you can be more expressive, or you can create some content yourself, especially in the podcast world. You can be so free it feels very free with speech. So I do agree. I feel quite like I'm working in pirate radio now, but
So you don't have to pay some bloke like 10 quid to get a set like that's obviously changed.
Well, a lot of DJs I know who lost, their live income turned to Twitch because you can earn from Twitch. You can have people donate. And I find that amazing because I know that first initial panic of being like, how am I going to pay my rent and my mortgage? I'm not like, they relied on that touring income, and just to see like Twitch being able to have, because obviously you had like YouTube streams and things like that, but I was not aware of Twitch really properly until lockdown, and I didn't know that you could make money from it or have like be kind of have your fans pay towards you being able to like keep your head above the water a bit. So I think
as soon as they sort of start also, and I'm just going to say this, as soon as Twitch starts sort of sorting out their music rights payments properly as well, I think that would be really dope, because then I think like people beyond sort of independent labels or people playing their own music or whatever the artists can properly benefit from that as well. And they do wicked sort of beatport overlays, so you can buy music. Like that for me is the kind of like little missing bit that I'd love to see, because then everybody gets to really benefit, not just the people curating, but like people that are being played, because that's super important that artists are paid.
I do know that Mixcloud pay.
They're dope. They pay
royalties. You can't archive it, but the artists whose music you do play do get royalties as a result. And I think that is the future. I mean, if we are talking about the future, the future is the democratization of it all. And DJs being sustained off of their community rather than having somebody sitting in like an ivory desk or whatever, kind of saying like, I think you're cool, I don't think you're cool, I don't like that. It's determined by the audience and the people out there, I think that can only be exciting, because everyone's got a different voice, and everyone's got a different something to say, I think.
So I think I was going to say really quickly, podcasting as well to me is a bit like pirate radio in that way, because you've got Patreon and you've got like all of that stuff, and I think that's just obviously sort of non-music, but for me that kind of like barrier to entry, that anyone can do it, and that it's people power, and that you can get funding yourself and get your community to pay for you and stuff. I think it's worth just wanted to mention that.
We just had a message from someone saying that they literally started using Twitch in lockdown, started doing DJ sets. They created a small fan base of people that they never even knew, and now those people are sending them small donations. So it's like that thing of they built that from scratch, just from having this platform. I'm not too clued up on like why music doesn't get cut off here. Is that still a big thing that's happening then about the music licensing here on Twitch? Is that a big issue? I'm not too clued up on that.
I think it's in the pipeline, Amazon own the platform and everything, so I'm sure that's in the pipeline. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just going to be a good game changer, so it can be more of that Mixcloud sort of model, so people can get paid, like Thristian says. Yeah. That's the extent of my knowledge, so I'm going to leave it there.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I hear murmurs and people say stuff in meetings and what have you.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do know that like Apple Music, obviously, have been working with Boiler Room on DJ streams and people getting the royalties from within the streams and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure Spotify, I'm sure Amazon are going to be working on it, but it is something for us to be aware of. We do have to make sure that we use the right platforms that reward the artists and the community in a fair way. I think we are on Twitch now, and I'm not going to shame talk to Twitch, but at the same time, I think everyone should be open to different mediums that arise, and make sure that everyone doesn't get kind of caught down like the Instagram hole or like a Twitter hole or a Twitch hole or a YouTube hole. There are amazing independent open source developers out there doing stuff, which we never know where it's going to take us.
Well, I like that every time I've gone to ask the next question, you kind of always touched on it before I even ask it. So I wanted to ask about, we know that music and broadcasting have always gone hand in hand together intrinsically throughout the history of broadcasting. Do you think there's any kind of historical changes that have come out of the last year and whatnot, or is it all just part of this evolution that we've been talking about throughout this whole conversation? Do we see artists getting more, because streaming doesn't pay as well as radio pays? I don't know as part of that, but are we going to see a change from like platforms like Twitch are not making the artists more important or as important as they are on radio and the way they get paid for a play on that? Do you think we'll see any sort of historical change on that front?
It's a massive tug of war, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just continuously like tugging at it, and then somebody else is tugging the other way, and then there's just some other massive monster that comes out. But I do feel like artists have been through a really tough time over the past 18 months or so, and it wasn't easy before then. So like, should get it twisted. It definitely wasn't a stroll in the park before, and it's got even worse. And I think people are starting to understand that a little bit more. Even my mum is a little bit more sympathetic to the plight of artists, whereas before she'd be like, "Get a proper job," and now she's like, "You're right." So I think naturally that I think that's happening in a number of ways in society. Obviously, with our hospital workers, we've realised where that fits in our kind of like world and what importance that has in our life. And obviously, I'm not equating the importance of the NHS to online radio, but it has that. You figure out where that point is in your brain that it kind of satisfies. And I think with a lot of stuff, this year has done that. It has been awful in a lot of ways, but there does seem to be a bit of appreciation for people's skills and the fact that they're working and doing a job.
I think it's also shown a big sort of obvious point is that for artists, they make their money from touring and live gigs as opposed to just on record sales. And when you take the concerts and the gigs away, it's so hard for artists to keep surviving. And then you look at the record sales and what part does radio play in that anymore? There's so many platforms. I mean, in the 90s, it was kind of a classic thing that if your track got played on the radio, you were probably guaranteed a top 10 hit, and all these sort of stats to do with the amount of records that you would get to get a top 10 hit. And the role of charts and things these days, is that relevant now with playlists and the way people are buying and consuming music? And I've just asked an open-ended question there, but it was just on the point to do with.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people know TikTok. If something goes viral on TikTok, that then can potentially go on to be a top 10 hit, which is a whole new platform that we know was only just kind of come around in recent years. Like, do we think that like charts are still relevant for radio and for artists? I don't know.
I think this is back for me to the right content, right platform, right time. So something can be a great TikTok record and can sound just awful on the radio or on a station like I think definitely we're all curators of radio stations, or all people that make playlists are curators, and so something being number one on the chart is great for that artist. It still kind of feels good. It feels like it drives marketing and momentum and word of mouth and all of that sort of stuff. But I think this is the kind of there's just more people in all of the cogs now. So you can have something TikTok can really sort of drive a hit, but we might not go anywhere near it. We might go early on a track and it can really drive Shazams that then drives playlists that then there's just more people sort of driving each other and pushing it round and round. I think for me, from a sort of radio station sort of point of view, I'm still there to do a job of being there for people at a particular time of day, creating a certain mood, curating the right vibe, and helping the music industry and artists to sort of propel what they're about and being culturally relevant. It doesn't mean, definitely, I sort of know wasn't your question, but as a sort of sidebar, it's not like a playlist is going to be exactly the same as going to be on a radio is exactly the same as the TikTok chart. I think this is all they've all got their different mood states. You might watch a TikTok over and over again. It doesn't mean you're going to want to turn on Kiss and hear that tune on loop. More often than not, you really don't, and you don't come to us for that. So yeah.
I think that shows the creativity of younger listeners and the way they consume, sort of aside from radio, they consume music, and how you can get a drill track or something on YouTube that just absolutely smashed it. And radio haven't even sort of started hearing of it yet. It's just been on the down low, amongst people sharing on their phones. And I think that's really exciting that there is, people still want to discover music and share it, and it's not just the radio that's leading the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Someone's asked, is there a healthy competition? So do Boiler Room care about Radio 1? Do Radio 1 consider Twitch streamers as competition, or is it all complimentary, all fair game?
Oh, it's all love all the time.
I think so. I don't want to speak for Radio 1. But I mean, I think, yeah, that's the reason why they're successful, isn't it? Because they sit in their own lane. You know, they have a different narrative in a different place. I think, you know, and I think it's really refreshing when you see different entities like that come together and showcase what they're strong at. You know, I mean, it's kind of weird, kind of thinking of Boiler Room kind of as competitor to YouTube, when YouTube is like one of our main tools. You know, it's like you know, I don't really think you can do that anymore. I mean, it's kind of moving away from the kind of decentralized, having a chart, having some guy at a desk kind of telling you what's right and what's wrong. You know, it feels like the rules are open now, and rather than fighting each other, I think we realise that it's better to get on and compliment each other and understand that we've got different strengths. You know,
I think looking towards what other people are doing. I mean, I was previously in the BBC, and now I'm working across lots of different spaces, and it's nice to see, as you say, that, you know, people have got their strengths, and it's a sort of an ecosystem you can all exist in, and you can not take things, but you can just look at what other people are doing and take inspiration from them. I do truly believe it's a lot more sort of cohesive than it is, you know, competitive. I do believe that, both in and out of the BBC. And I think that's sort of one, you know, if we're looking, if Boiler Room are looking at what Defected's doing, think, oh, we, you know, and vice versa, then that hunger is what drives you forwards. A little kind of tiny bit of sort of looking ahead at what people are doing and feeling slightly envious is not a bad thing. But I do believe the ecosystem is really inclusive.
Yeah. I mean, I remember. I mean, the guys at Boiler Room. I mean, this is way back in the when I was, you know, not such a nice person to the Boiler Room staff, and you know, they'd be like, oh, I was checking this out on Pitchfork. I was like, what are you watching Pitchfork for? You should be taking Pitchfork. Like, find something else. I don't want to know what's on Pitchfork. You know, that kind of thing of like, you know, just kind of like making sure that, you know, you look elsewhere. You know, and you find different things so that it doesn't become a competition and you're not kind of fighting over the same territory.
Yeah, do you know what a great example of that is like lots of us as broadcasters and radio station owners have got talent that have got huge social media presences. Now we're all trying to have big social media. We're not kind of seeing that as competition. Like, they are in our ecosystem. We're all benefiting from each other from that, and it's about utilizing each other's superpowers, and that's just within our own little brand bubble, right? So like, I think, yeah, absolutely. Like, obviously for us as a sort of traditional broadcaster, commercial broadcaster, where we're trying to win, you know, sponsorships or advert revenue or whatever from Global, who own like Capital in that really, really traditional radio space, which I know is a slight sidebar from today. Yes, there's definitely battleground. There's definitely battleground with particular things in business, like you say, Lucy, creatively driving you, but from a commercial point of view, there definitely is. But I only think that, yeah, makes you sort of more hungry. And then, yeah, we totally like take inspiration from other people. And like I say, work with people that previously 5 years ago would have been considered enemies. Like, let's just let the audience lead what we do, right?
I love someone's agreed with you there, saying the best inspiration comes from your peers and competitors. Healthy challenge propels industry forward. So I'm going to put you all on the spot as we come to the end of this lovely conversation. And if you can put it into one phrase, a sentence, what would you each individually say is the future of radio?
The listeners.
Sick. Love that.
I can't do anything without the listeners.
Yeah, mic drop, that's it.
I thought it was going to take me another 5 minutes. That's left me with nothing else.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it is. I mean, I think that, you know, bringing back around what we've all been saying, in the past hour is about, we're reacting to what, what's happening in the communities and what people want. And, reading things like social media or other platforms is just kind of aggregating, what's happening out in the community. So, I mean, it in a lot of senses, if somebody's watching this or watching a Twitch and getting inspired to get into radio, whether that's production or as a DJ or what have you, it's because you're a listener and you've got into it, and you want to keep it going. You want to, and I'm sure there'll be somebody listening to the stream who'd be running some kind of streaming platform well beyond when I'm gone. And so, it is about people listening and interacting and getting involved. It really, really is for me.
Wicked. Do you both agree, Rebecca?
Yeah, I almost think it sort of, for the future of radio, it doesn't matter what people are listening to, but as long as they're listening, I think keep people, doing the human instinct, which is to come together and to want to enjoy themselves and to inform themselves. And if we can do that with some sort of audio platform for the next 1,000 years, then that's the future.
Yeah,
and all I was going to say is I just sort of don't tell my boss this, but I hate looking too far ahead, because let's face it, like where people have fallen flat in industries like music or whatever before is when they've tried to completely predict and future-proof with 10-year plans, and it's like, like Thristian said, like the audience are going to move quicker in a way that it's just us kind of leaving room for agility and to keep our eyes and ears open as an industry. So we're not going, we've got a 10-year plan and we're going to do this. It's like, hang on a minute, there's been a global pandemic, switch, So I've got no idea, actually, and I kind of like that.
That's nice. It's kind of like you pick up your phone, like, what? What is going on here? 5 million views, what?
Exactly, who knows?
Well, talking about listening, there is going to be radio shows after this, so I just want to thank you guys for being a part of this conversation. I've not met any of you before. It's so lovely to have all this conversation with you and get your insight, and for me personally, it's been very inspiring. So thank you for being involved, all three of you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Just for those who are listening and watching, coming up next, there's going to be a whole bunch of Defected video shows. So up next is Defected Video hosted by Monki, followed by Sam Divine, Remarkable, and Melville Baptiste. Thank you for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon with loads of radio right here on this platform.
Listen to radio.
You made that happen, Lucy, didn't you?
Yeah, I've got